Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. Some things once heard can never be unheard. They echo in your mind at the worst possible moments, taint every kiss, and make you question everything you thought you knew about your life. My name is Ryan, and this is how a single conversation from my wife ended our 8-year marriage, before she even realized I was listening. Jessica and I had been married for 8 years when we hit that stage where everything seemed to slow down. The passionate rush of our early 20s had softened into something more stable, more predictable. We had our routines, our separate hobbies, our quiet nights at home. At first, I didn't worry. People always say marriage has seasons, right? The butterflies aren't supposed to last forever. I figured this was just the next chapter. Less fiery passion, more the steady, lasting kind of love that builds families and endures for decades. Jessica seemed fine with our life together, even if she wasn't as affectionate as she once was. But when I started making an effort to rekindle some of that spark, planning weekend getaways, suggesting new restaurants, and finding things for us to do together, her indifference became impossible to ignore. She'd agree half-heartedly, come along with me, but her mind always seemed elsewhere, even during moments that were supposed to feel intimate. I kept trying different things, thinking maybe I hadn't found the right approach yet. If she wanted adventure, I organized hiking trips. If she craved culture, I got us theater tickets. If she needed relaxation, I booked spa weekends. But nothing lit up her face the way I hoped. She'd smile politely and say yes to my plans, but always felt like she was doing it out of duty, not excitement. Even during romantic dinners, Jessica was polite but distant. On weekend trips, she took pictures for social media but acted like she was just checking off a box. I doubled down on my efforts. Flowers sent to her office, surprise picnics in places that had been special to us, even recreating our very first date down to the smallest detail. Still, her reaction was lukewarm at best. Eventually, I started watching her more closely, listening to everything she said, picking up on patterns I'd been ignoring for months, maybe even years. The changes had been so gradual that I just adapted, brushing off my unease rather than facing what it might mean. Jessica had grown cold toward me, especially in the bedroom. Our physical intimacy dropped from several times a week to once or twice a month, and even then it felt mechanical, detached. Even casual touches, those little signs of affection, had faded away. When I tried to initiate them, she'd respond, but the hugs felt like habit, not love. She also started going out with her friends more and more, sometimes twice a week, never telling me much about where she went or what they did. She'd come home late, often after I was already in bed, and the next morning her answers to my questions were vague and generic. What hurt most was that these outings seemed to recharge her. She'd come back smiling, full of life, so much more alive than she ever seemed around me. And when she was home, her phone might as well have been a wall between us. It was always face down. She grabbed it instantly when it buzzed, angled it away from me when texting, or left the room to answer calls. Individually, each of these behaviors could be explained away, but all together, they told a story I was terrified to acknowledge. What if Jessica was already checked out of our marriage? What if there was someone else? Rather than face those possibilities, I buried myself in work, staying late, volunteering for extra projects, anything to avoid coming home to the quiet discomfort of our evenings together. But I still believe that if I just did enough thoughtful things, Jessica would realize how much she meant to me and remember why she'd fallen in love with me. When small gestures didn't work, I went bigger. I spent weeks learning how to cook her favorite dish from scratch, an intricate pasta recipe her grandmother had taught her, one she rarely made because it was so time-consuming. I studied cooking videos, joined forums, and perfected the sauce. I planned to surprise her with a meal and use it as an opening for a real conversation about where we were headed. Thursday evening seemed perfect. I left work early, stopped by the store, and bought everything I needed. For the first time in months, I felt hopeful. But when I got home at 5:30 p.m., arms full of groceries, I heard Jessica's voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone with someone. I froze in the hallway, not wanting to interrupt, but curious. Then I heard her say words that would haunt me. I can't keep pretending much longer. He's a good guy, but he's just not enough. Honestly, I feel dead inside when I'm with him. For a second, I convinced myself she couldn't be talking about me. Maybe she was talking about someone else's relationship. But then she said my name. Ryan tries so hard, but it doesn't matter. I just don't feel anything anymore when he touches me or tries to be romantic. I know I should end it, but it's complicated. We have the house. Our families love him. He hasn't done anything wrong. The grocery bags suddenly felt like they weighed 100 pounds. My chest felt like it was collapsing. People think they'd explode in a moment like that. Storm in, demand answers. But shock doesn't work like that. Shock makes you silent. I quietly put my keys back in my pocket, left the groceries in my briefcase by the door, and slipped back out of the house. Jessica probably found the bags later and realized I'd come home and left again. She texted me, "Hey, babe, I saw the groceries by the door. Where did you go?" I couldn't answer. How do you reply to someone who just admitted they feel nothing when they're with you? She kept texting and eventually started calling. I ignored them all and stayed at a friend's house that night. By morning, I knew I had to say something. I sent one short message. "I heard everything you said about me and our marriage. I'm done." Jessica immediately went into damage control. Text after text trying to explain that she'd just been venting, that I'd misunderstood, that I was overreacting. But hearing her claim that describing me as someone she had to pretend was just venting felt insulting. And yet, against my better judgment, I went home that evening to hear her out. She had a carefully prepared explanation. She was just going through a phase, figuring herself out, but she still loved me and wanted to make our marriage work. She swore there was no other man, that the girls' nights were innocent, and that she'd never cheated on me. Her words were convincing enough to make me want to try. For a while we did. We communicated more, made love again, and tried to rebuild what was broken. But her words, those words I overheard, never left my head. Every kiss, every touch, every "I love you" felt hollow. I analyzed everything she did, wondering if she was just pretending again. Eventually, I realized I couldn't live like that. The trust was gone. So I filed for divorce. When Jessica came home to find the papers on the table, she begged me to reconsider, promising therapy, promising change. But my decision was final. Her words had ended our marriage that night, long before the papers were signed. The process took months, filled with arguments over assets and a house, but eventually we settled. Looking back, I'm strangely grateful for what I heard that day. It saved me from spending years trying to fix something that had already died in her heart. The hardest part wasn't losing Jessica. It was realizing how long she had been pretending. Today, I'm rebuilding. I'm learning to trust my instincts, to speak up before problems fester, and to recognize when someone is emotionally gone. Most of all, I've learned that I deserve to be with someone who doesn't have to pretend to love me. Jessica's words, though unintentional, gave me the truth I needed to finally move on. Some words can never be taken back. Some truths can't be ignored. And sometimes the most painful thing you can hear is exactly what you need to finally be free.